All right.
Okay, this is under 2024 Fall Nurse 110 reviews, correct? Is that the playlist that it's under on YouTube?
Oh, it'll be under the 2024 Fall Nursing 110 is
Got
I
it.
think is what it will end up being under. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Um, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through all of this so you can kind of see these are the most up-to-date and accurate types of questions you're going to see on your tests next week. And it's online. So I'm going to also I'll intro with a couple of things because I forgot to look at some of the nuanced things that usually if you miss, they give you credit for just because it was just an input error. And I'll let you know what that is. But the questions really are just going to vary depending on, or they're just going to change the numbers. They might use different labels, but the way these questions are asked are going to be fairly consistent. So I'm in the student mode. So this is pretty much what you'd see when you open this up. And you may have already taken this. So I'm going to just go ahead and do these and I'll work them out just so you can kind of see what that looks like as I do it. And I know that, let me see if I can move this annotation thing. Here we go. It's out of the way. All right. So the first one is just doing a conversion. If I'm doing this, if I'm going 1500 milligrams to grams, I just move my decimal. And so I get 1.5 grams. But as a reminder, if it's been a little bit to practice your conversions, just remember that the conversion for grams to milligrams is 1 to 1,000. And then when I take 1,500 divided by 1,000, that's where I get my 1.5. And so I would just then type in 1.5. So I can do that here. Yeah. Now, you don't want to put in the letter here because it's already indicated. Okay. So when you do this, just pay attention because sometimes it'll tell you like not to enter the units. Sometimes it will tell you to enter the units. Sometimes you'll enter the units like this, but the key is like this. But like I said, if you end up getting a question like this wrong, a lot of times that's why you got it wrong, is just because they ended up putting in the letter when they told you not to, or you ended up putting in the um, what's it called? Or you put a space or didn't put a space, just so you know, they usually go through and just and make those corrections. But make sure you follow the directions. So if it tells you to only mark to number, or if it tells you only to like for like a half thing, it tells you to write 0.5 as opposed to 1/2. Just follow whatever the directions say. Um, uh, no, I would if the test tells you specifically to add the units, then yes. If it tells you not to add the units, then don't add them. If it says numbers only, then just put the numbers only. Yeah, so just pay attention, and then that should be a fair question to ask even before you start the test. Do you want the units or not? Um, I personally think that it's a good idea that you're adding the units in, but it'll save getting your grades back, or save time getting your grades back if you just follow whatever the directions is they tell you. All right. For the 250 micrograms to milligrams, I'm going to do the same thing. You can, you know, show your work as I'm showing. You'll have a scratch piece of paper to do that. And you need to know that there are 1,000 micrograms in a milligram. And then I'm going to get 0.25. And so I would just I would type in the 0.25. All right, I'm going to clear my writing here. Try to. Okay. So this is being recorded, so you'll be able to see this. If you come back to this, you can always just pause if you need to see how I'm working something out. Now, typically when I do the pounds to kilograms stuff, I usually just put it right into my calculator and I just divide by 2.2 and I just kind of go with that. So if you want to show your work using dimensional analysis, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to plug it into my calculator because I like to do. This is a good question. Yes, you will get a 10 key calculator when you take the test. They won't let you use the computer. They're not going to let you use your phone, but you will be given a calculator. All right. So question 1 would just be 75 kilograms. Question 4, I'm just going to take 117 divided by 2.2. And this one, I'm going to get 53.18 repeating. So I'm going to get 53.181818. And just make sure you remember you're going to round that to the nearest 10th. So your answer is going to be 53.2. You don't want to round up to 54. You want to round it to the nearest 10th. So 53.2. All right. And then we have one more, 182 divided by 2.2. Another one where you're going to get 82.727272 repeating. So you're just going to round it to the nearest 10th, 82.7. Instinctively, you want to answer and you want to write 83. There might be a time where you get the whole kilogram, and in reality, it probably doesn't matter once you're over, 120 pounds. It's probably not going to change the medication value too much. But the main reason they want you to practice this rounding pounds to kilograms and rounding to the nearest 10th is because when you're doing pediatric dosages, those decimal points matter a little bit more. Okay. All right. Milliliters to ounces. So remember, you're going to be given these things, and you're not going to have anything written out there, but you need to remember that 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. You have to have that memorized. It's not going to be given to you, so you need to practice that. And then you're just going to take your 200 milliliters. Again, I'm just going to show you dimensional analysis. This is not how I do it when I'm writing these out. I usually just put it into my calculator, but anytime there's something other than like the dividing by 2.2, I like to at least show it to you. I'm going to get 200 divided by 30. And again, I'm going to get a decimal answer. So I'm going to get 6.6666, it just keeps going on and on and on. We're going to round to the nearest 10th. So I'm going to look at what's past that. And then my answer is going to be 6.7. Those of you that are just kind of jumping in, I've just been working through this. It's being recorded. It will be posted up on YouTube under the 2024 Nursing 110 fall 2024. Yeah, 2024 fall Nursing 110 playlist. So you can kind of see how these are out, and hopefully you'll practice these. And these are the most up-to-date, most likely questions that you're going to see on your test. So this is a good one to practice if you haven't already. Then converting milliliters to liters. Again, I'm just going to show you, like, I can just move my decimal point over 3. So my answer would be 0.35. Again, you can work out your dimensional analysis, and you can say 350 ml equals 1 liter, or times 1 liter over 1,000 ml. You can work it out however you want, as long as you're getting the same correct answer. You're most likely doing it correct. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm getting through all these, which is why I do. Now, notice I do include my leading 0. I do not include any lagging 0, so I don't put a 0 past it. And then I'm also not putting in the units, because I'm certain, since the unit's already listed, they probably don't want it. They just want the numerical answer. But we'll find out when I get the feedback on it. All right, moving right along. Again, more conversions. So here we're asking to go from milliliters to teaspoons. So one thing you need to remember, 1 teaspoon is the same thing as 5 milliliters, because remember, they're not going to give it to you. So I'm just going to convert milliliters to teaspoons using that conversion. So I want teaspoons, don't want milliliters. 30 divided by 5 is 6 teaspoons. Same thing right here. 1 tablespoon is equal 15 ml. And so if it says 2.5 tablespoons, I'm going to convert tablespoons, sorry, to milliliters. So in this one, I'm going to multiply by 2.5 tablespoons. And then 2.5 times 15, I think it's 45. Let me just make sure. Oh, I'm sorry, 37.5. Now, next semester, when you're working through these, you do want to make sure you're writing your units in your answers, but it'll be on paper. So it won't, this is the only time that you'll do this on a test like this. Good, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but that's just how it is. Okay. All right. So let's go to the ounces to milliliters, and then to the fluid replacement. So it says 1.5 ounces. We already did this, the different conversion, right? So 1 ounce is what? 30 milliliters. So just 30 times 1.5, that's my 45. That's what I was looking for. I knew one of these answers was 45. For the fluid replacement, remember, this is the one that I try to give you a formula for this. You can do dimensional analysis. There's a couple different ways, but I always find that the what I typically recommend is use this formula. Take your actual output, what the patient actually voided or urinated, the kind of expected, I'm just going to say EXP output, and then times your replacement volume. That's your in. And that'll give you your answer every single time. So it tells you for every 125 milliliters out, so this is my expected out, I'm going to replace with 40. So it tells you it's the replacement. And if the actual output was 500 milliliters, what are we going to replace it with? So I'm going to take my actual output over my expected output times my replacement. Now, I know that looks a lot like ordered over available or desired over have times quantity. It's similar, but I'm just trying to keep it simple and straightforward. And so if you answer this question following the actual out over expected out times your replacement volume, you should be able to get this one right every single time. I will also add that the expected out and everything like that, sometimes they'll say in the sometimes it'll say the patient voided 500 milliliters in the last 4 hours if the replacement, or if you should replace 40 milliliters for every 125 milliliters of urine output, and then calculate the replacement volume. So sometimes they'll rearrange the question, but you can see here as it's written, most likely it's not going to get switched around. It's probably going to stay just like that. The only person that's going to switch something around like that is someone like me. And then I'm kind of doing that as a, to give you some reps and practice from it. So let me put my answers here so I don't forget. So 45. And then this is 160. I'm going to erase. And by the way, if you have a question or if you think I put the wrong answer, just jump right in because there's a chance that I made a boo-boo and be helpful seeing my mistake. All right, so I'm going to do the same strategy here. Okay. So I'm going to take the actual output, which was 400 milliliters, over my expected output, which is the 100 milliliters. And then my replacement volume is 30 milliliters. So that just is 120 milliliters. Now, one thing, and I don't think you'll see this, but they could try and quote unquote trick you by telling you, like, let's say the patient actual output was like 50 milliliters. You could still give them replacement volume, but it's less than 100. So the top number is not always the big number. Okay. The top number is just whatever the patient actually voided. And then you're still going to give them fluids, even if the fluid, the actual output was less than the expected output, you're still going to calculate that. So in that instance, you'd give them 15 milliliters. I'm assuming that that's not an actual scenario, but just giving you a heads up just in case you see a question like that. So 120. All right. All right. So this is our first drug label. We have an order of 500 milligrams by mouth twice a day, and it wants to know how many capsules per dose. You can see that it's available in 250 milligram capsules. So this is one of those questions where the order over available works great. So you can just take your 500 milligrams over your 250 ml or milligrams times your capsule, and that'll just give you 2 capsules. And then again, if you're doing dimensional analysis, I usually just set it up like I always start with my order. You can start with whatever you like, and then I'll convert my milligrams to capsules. So 1 capsule is 250 milligrams. It still gives me the same answer. Now, some of you might just go and say, well, I just looked at that and I got the answer. That's fine. I don't know how they're checking to see if you showed your work, but sometimes it's helpful just to write something down. Okay. All right. Now this one says this is a 2-parter. Okay. You have to do some math, but then they want you to choose the coordinates on the actual cup. Okay. So it says potassium chloride elixir, 40 milliequivalents by mouth, 4 times a day with juice. What's available is 20 milliequivalents per 15 ml. And then how many ml will you administer per dose? And then in order to answer the question, you need to mark the cup. And so when you're marking the cup, if it tells you to look and your answer is how many milliliters, answer on the ml side. Okay. You would be correct answering on the CC side, but because they asked for milliliters, just answer milliliters. Also, as a little kind of side note, this is the your answer is going to be on here. You can't estimate like 22 and a half or, and it's not going to be above 30. So you're just going to you're going to mark wherever that is on here. Okay. Just to kind of give you a heads up on that. So if I'm writing this out just to solve it, I'm going to take my 40 milliequivalents over my 20 milliequivalents. And here's where a lot of students miss it. It's not 1 ml, it's 15 ml. So don't forget to include that correct quantity, okay? And then that's going to just equal your 30 ml. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 30 ml. Now, I think we're safe just putting the mark right there on the line, but we'll find out. If I get feedback and it says that it's wrong, then I'm assuming it's because they wanted it over here. But my assumption is that we should be able to put it right on the line. We should be good. If I'm not mistaken, the key basically is like a bar that just basically says any point along this line would be a correct answer. Just in case you've answered it in a couple different positions. All right. Number 15, dilantin by mouth. This is a commonly missed question because students start solving for milliliters, but it clearly says how many teaspoons will you give. Your order is 125 milligrams per 5 ml. You have a similar question to this on your the practice sheets that I've given you. So you can do this like this, where you have 125 milligrams times your 5 ml. That gives you 10 ml, and then you just have to convert milliliters to teaspoons. But I'm going to show you an easier way to do this that just involves not doing this extra conversion. You already know that 5 ml is equal to 1 teaspoon. So just substitute that. So if I'm solving this, I'm just going to do 250 mg, my order over available, times my quantity, but in this time in teaspoons. And then you'll get 2 teaspoons. Now, here's the thing, like, you might instinctively want to write 2 teaspoons. I know I do. But I'm just not 100% sure. I didn't check the answer. So if I get them all wrong, then I'll know that I should have put my units. All right. A few more questions left here. All right. V-K suspension, 150 milligrams by mouth. I think that's supposed to be QID, because I don't think there is a GID. How many ml will you administer per 1 dose? Now, this is one that students get hung up on for a variety of reasons. So let me go back up so I can see the order. The biggest thing that I notice, most likely that trips everyone up, is this right here, where you have 125 milligrams, but then it also says 2000 IU. So you have 2 different measurements. These are equivalents, meaning that if this order was given in units, then you could use the units to solve it. But it gives it to you in milligrams as well. Your order's in milligrams. So we can just ignore the 2000 units, okay? But we don't ignore the 5 ml. Okay, so that extra in parentheses is not supposed to be distracting information. It's just that some labels will have equivalents on there. So one of the common ones is it might say 250 micrograms and then in parentheses 0.25 milligrams. It's the same strength. It's just supposed to be like a shortcut when you are trying to figure out like how much medication to utilize and to try and keep it simple for yourself. I don't know how helpful it is, but just letting you know that. So since we know that now, I'm going to take my 150 milligrams over my available 125 milligrams times my quantity. Remember, that's the 5 ml. Those of you who are doing dimensional analysis, I imagine that I hopefully am not disrupting your flow here. Ultimately, if you're getting the same answer I'm getting, then you're doing it right. Okay, I'm just trying to shorthand some of these things. So usually what I do with this is I just multiply across the top. So 150 times 5, which is 750, and then divide by 125, and I'm going to get 6. Feels like we got 6 already in this pathway, which is not necessarily unusual. All right. Let's see what this one is. I'm gonna erase my stuff here. Okay. So this is a nystatin question. It tells you that the physician orders nystatin 150,000 units oral swish and swallow 4 times a day. How many mLs we administer per 1 dose? So we're going to do a couple things. We're going to look at what we have, what our available is. So our available right here, it says 1,000 units per milliliter. Seems like you guys are getting pretty good about finding these. I haven't had anyone ask any of these questions, so I'm assuming you're doing okay with these things. And then you're just going to take your order, 150,000 units, over your 100,000 units per milliliter. Times 1 milliliter. And then you're going to get 1.5 ml. Now, my guess is what's probably a more accurate oral suspension like mix with this is something that you can actually put in your mouth and swish around, because 1.5 milliliters, that's less than half of a teaspoon. So there's really not a lot to swish around with. So my guess is that in reality, you're probably going to do like 30 milliliters or more when you do this particular medication. So 15 to 30. 30 seems to be like a kind of like a Listerine type, or, you know, a mouthwash kind of size. Just to kind of put it into context. But we're going to go with what it says. So that's what it says. All right, almost done here. If you do need to leave, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to keep going until I finish this, and then I'll, like I said, I'll upload this later on. So if you do need to bounce, just know that that's perfectly fine. All right, so let's do question 18, and then we have another cup question. Now, this is the one where you might get like a half as an answer. So, and then I know that it wants it in the decimal version, but sometimes on a paper test, like you're going to get an answer like this, but sometimes they want you to write it like that. So 0.5 or half on your test. I'm pretty sure they just want you to put the decimal answer, but just pay attention to it. So my order is 2.5. I have 5 milligram tablets available. 2.5 divided by 5 will give me 0.5. Again, I'm not writing the units because I don't think we're supposed to. All right, here's another cup question. Remember my secret? It's not really a secret, but your answer is going to be on the cup. Okay, so it's going to be on the cup. So if you get an answer and it's not on the cup, go back and redo the problem. Now, this one requires that you do a little bit of a conversion, but you've done this enough that it won't be a problem. It tells you we have 0.375 grams every 6 hours. Available is 125 milligrams and 5 ml. How much will you get per dose? So the important thing is you got to remember to convert your 0.375 grams to milligrams. So this is why it's good to practice these things. So that's the same thing as 375 milligrams over my 125 milligrams, my available, times my 5 ml. And then you're going to get 15 ml as your answer. Then I'm going to come down to my cup, and I'm going to mark it at 15. And like I said, I'm going to drop it right in the middle, right on that line. Make sure. Yeah, we're good. Okay. That should be fine. If for some reason that is not where you want it to be, you can clear it and then go right back to it. There we go. I'm sure it was fine, but All right. Digoxin. So here's that example of that one where I told you it will have like two equivalent units listed for this concentration or the strength. So it says digoxin 0.75 milligrams, and then you have the following labeled and available, and it tells you 125 micrograms, and then it tells you 0.125 milligrams. Those are equivalents. They mean the exact same thing, right? 0.125 milligrams, same thing as 125 micrograms. So which one do you use? I always say use the one that matches what's in your order. So milligrams, milligrams. So I'm going to take my 0.75 divided by my 0.125 times my one tablet. These are tablets, yeah. And what do we get? This one I have to plug in the calculator because I can't remember how to do that off the top of my head. So 0.75 divided by 0.125. And then that's actually quite a bit of tablets. It's 6 tablets. Seems like a lot. I start questioning like over 3 when it comes to meds. Okay. So 6 tablets. So we just come down here and put in our 6. And moving right along, almost done. All right. It says cimetidine 0.8 grams by mouth daily. How many tablets will you administer per one dose? You can see that you have the label. Tagamet is 400 milligrams. 0.8 grams is the same thing as what? 800 milligrams. So if I'm going through this and you're not getting the same numbers every single time, like the same as me, or like every night, sometimes you get 8, sometimes you get 80, sometimes you get 8,000. Make sure you're practicing your metric system conversions, specifically grams, milligrams, micrograms, because those are the predominant types that you're going to see when you're studying for dosage calc. Over 400 milligrams, because it's my order. That's per capsule. Tablet. What's it say? Tablets. So it's just 2 tablets. So just write 2. And question 22. You've probably seen this question before, the Aldamet question, because I've had it on my practice sets for years. So with this question, it's asking you to the order is 400 milligrams by mouth 3 times a day. And then it says how many milliliters. That's the other thing. Pay attention. Is it milliliters? Is it teaspoons? Is it tablespoons? 400 milligrams is the order. My available is 250 milligrams per 5 ml. So 400 times 5 is 2,000 divided by 250. And we're going to get 8 milliliters. Right. Here's another marking of the, this time it's marking a tubex. So let's do this here. All right, so the order is 75 milligrams of Demerol intramuscular. So if you're ever taking a test and you're not sure if it's looking for milliliters or micrograms or, tablets, capsules, if it tells you intramuscular, it's an injectable and it's a liquid, it's milliliters. Okay. Also, if you pay attention to the syringe or the tubex in this instance, a lot of times it'll indicate milliliters on there. So it says how many milliliters will you give per one dose. So we have Demerol 75, it's available 50. So I'm going to take my order divided by, oops, sorry. Did that wrong. I'm going to take my order, which is 75, divided by my available times my quantity. And we're going to get, what was that, 1.5? 75 divided by 50. Yeah, 1.5. And then it wants you to mark the syringe. So you're just going to drop your pointer on it. So I'm going to drop it right on that 1.5 ml line. So hopefully that's good. All right, I think there's just 2 more questions left. Number 24. This is another, well, it does tell you to mark the syringe. Okay, and that's all they want you to do. The other thing that's helpful is anytime they ask you to mark a cup or a syringe or something like that, you know your answer is on there. Okay, so it has to be on that syringe. So it says the order is 2,500 units. Wants to know how many milliliters to administer. And then mark the syringe. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our 2,500 units over our available, which is 5,000 units. And per ml. So that's just going to be 0.5, right? Just double check. 2,500 divided by 5,000. Yeah, 0.5. Aren't you happy that you get to use a calculator with all these things? And then I'm just going to drop a point on my half milliliter. Now, here's the thing that's a little bit tricky, right? Because it says 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. So we have to kind of split the difference between 0.4 and 0.6. So my 0.5 should be right there. Just pay attention to that, because sometimes that's how they'll do that. They'll try and add a little extra trickery. All right, last question. Morphine question. So let me get rid of this. It says the physician orders 45 milligrams morphine IV stat. You have morphine as labeled below. How much would you administer per 1 dose? So I'm going to take my order, 45 milligrams. And then this is a good example. This is technically a reconstitution question. It's just that it's giving you all the information you need right on there. So a lot of times when you see reconstitution, it'll just say like 250 milligrams. And then when you are looking at a IV type question, you know that you're looking for milliliters, and then it tells you to look for milliliters. So this 250 milligrams really doesn't tell you anything as far as how to solve the problem. You need to look at the concentration. And that's where that 25 milligrams per milliliter comes in. So your available is 25 milligrams per ml. 45 divided by 25. And we get 1.8 milliliters. And we're just going to plug that in. Oh, there's more than 25. Okay. How many questions are there? Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, I'm going to keep working through them. I thought it was just 25. Always good to have a few extra questions to get some feedback on. All right. This is another morphine question. This time, we do have the concentration listed. One of the things that you'll notice is you'll see where it says 10 milligrams per milliliter, and then they just reduce it down to 1 milligram per milliliter. whichever one you use, just make sure you use one or the other. My suggestion is just use the 1 milligram per milliliter. So when you know that, 5 milligrams, 1 milligram per milliliter, it's just 5 ml. All right, insulin question. So typically what they're going to give you is a sliding scale question, and they just want you to put your answer to this. So you really don't need to convert anything. You just need to be able to read the graph or the table. So it tells you that your patient's glucose level is 200, and you're just going to look for that range, which is right here. And so it says how many units of insulin will you administer. You're just going to administer 2. So there's really no math here. It's just, can you read the table? That's what they're testing you on. So technically, it's still science, not a whole lot of math calculation involved, but. And then 28 is our last question. This is where we're going to combine. So they want you to add, and then they want you to choose the correct syringe. So this question, it says, just please select the correct syringe. Doesn't matter that you mark it where it's correct. But if you were doing this, you would take 10 plus 20 and get 30. And then I'm looking at, I have these 2 syringes. If they really want to trick you, they would put like an insulin label, because insulin labels do tell you like it's 100 units per ml. And then you might be tempted to put and choose the ml syringe, but you've been doing this long enough. You've seen a couple of these review questions, and you know that you're not going to do that. Your insulin is measured in units. You even had a question that said, how many units would you administer? You're going to use the units syringe. So I'm not sure where they want you to select it, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and select it at the 30, just because I know that's how much I would administer, and then just kind of see what that is. So, all right, so let's see how I did. Do I even get my results here? All right, so I might have to pull up. Oh, here we go. So it gives me feedback right away. So it's not giving me the answers, but it's telling me that if I got full credit for it. So if I got 1 out of 1, then I got the full credit for it. So I'm just going through and seeing if there's any that I missed. The ones I'm worried about missing were some of the where I put my points down, but it looks like everything's coming back. So I know that, and this is exactly the feedback you get. You don't really see, like, even if you got 0 out of 1, you don't see what you put. But if you ever run into something, you can always take a screenshot and send it to me. And it looks like if you follow along with this, you can see that I chose all the questions correct for this particular test. So, oh yeah, I guess I could have just said and looked at my 28 and 28. If I had missed anything, it would have said 0 out of 1 point, and then that would have been a way to remember which one that I missed, and to kind of revisit that question. So, any questions before I wrap up? Any questions about your test on Monday? Any questions about this practice test, or any questions, other questions? All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And like I said, I will post this.